The winter wind pressed against the glass walls of JFK Airport like a warning. People rushed past each other inside the terminal scarves, whipping behind them, coats tugged tighter and boarding calls echoing through the high ceilings. Lucas Reed adjusted the worn strap of his olive green duffel and stepped forward, guiding his daughter through the crowd with one steady hand. Emily, only 8 years old, disappeared inside her oversized thrift store coat. Her gloved hands clutched a faded stuffed bear with one ear half gone, Captain Tumbleweed. "Daddy," she asked softly, looking up at the windows streaked with gray. "Is the wind mad we're flying today?" Lucas glanced at the departure monitors above them. The words Storm, Helena, Category 2 blinked in red at the bottom of the weather advisory feed. The storm was shifting more eastward than expected, closer to the transatlantic routes. He didn't flinch, just looked down at her with a calm smile he'd rehearsed too many times before. "No, sweetheart," he said gently. "The wind just likes to test us now and then, but I'll get you through it. I always do." Emily nodded and pulled the bear tighter to her chest. At the gate, the clerk didn't offer a smile as she took their passports. She barely glanced up. "Would you like to upgrade to premium economy?" she asked without warmth. "We have a few seats left." Lucas opened his wallet. 2 20s, 1 10, and a folded photo of a woman with a red scarf smiling at something just beyond the frame. He offered the clerk a soft shake of his head. "No, thank you. We're fine where we are." Without a word, she handed back their boarding passes. They stepped onto the plane aisle. Crowded cabin lights dimmed to a warm glow. Emily walked beside him, humming softly just the first few notes of a song she never quite finished. It was something she played on the old upright piano at the shelter. Her fingers always hesitated at the fourth note, then skipped ahead. Claire de Lune, maybe. Lucas never corrected her. Up front, beyond the partition curtain, Ariana Lancaster sat in seat 2A, tablet in hand, shoulders still. She scrolled through the boardroom summary for the third time. Project Valor, denied, 6 votes against, 0 for, 2 emotional, not scalable, no investor return. Her jaw clenched. That initiative had been personal, a post-service housing and medical support program for retired pilots, inspired by her father killed during a wildfire airlift when she was 16, and they'd shut it down like it was just a spreadsheet miscalculation. Ariana locked the tablet screen and leaned back into the seat, her spine straight. Her expression unreadable. Discipline. Precision. She didn't break, not even in private. Then something bumped her knee. She looked down. A small girl had wandered into the first-class section wide-eyed and startled with a stuffed bear now lying face down by Ariana's polished heels. "Oops," the girl whispered. Ariana raised an eyebrow. "You're not supposed to be here." The girl reached for the bear, but Ariana picked it up first. She dusted it off without thinking and handed it back. "Careful next time," she said, her voice more gentle than she intended. A man approached, tall, lean, wearing a well-worn jacket. Lucas gave a small apologetic nod. His voice calm, quiet. "Sorry about that. She just wanted to find a window seat. It's her first time flying across the Atlantic." Ariana handed the bear back without replying. Their eyes met hers, cool and guarded, his lined and steady. She turned back to her screen. "Security in London's stricter than here," she said. "Just so you know." Lucas didn't answer. He just placed a hand on Emily's shoulder and steered her gently away. As they walked back toward economy, Emily whispered. She looked like someone in a movie, but colder. Lucas gave a soft chuckle. "A lot of cold people live in movies, kiddo. Row 17. Seats E and F." Lucas slid their duffel into the overhead bin. The violin case stayed at his feet. It never left his reach anymore. He helped Emily settle into her seat by the window. She pulled the shade up, stared out at the dull, shifting clouds. "It's gray," she said. "That just means the sky's feeling sleepy," Lucas replied. She leaned into his side and closed her eyes, still humming. A chime. Then the captain's voice, smooth and practiced, filled the cabin. "Good afternoon, folks. This is Captain Donald McCarthy. Should be a smooth ride tonight. A little bit of chop off the eastern seaboard, but nothing we can't handle. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight." Lucas let his head fall back against the seat. His eyes remained open. A second voice came through pre-recorded weather updates meant for internal crew. Storm Helena upgraded to Category 2. Trajectory shifting northeast. Active turbulence zones expected. Remain on advisory. He didn't blink, but his fingers curled slightly against the armrest. Daddy Emily's voice was barely more than a breath. He looked down at her. The same eyes as her mother. That same brave worry. "Are you sure we'll be okay?" He reached over, pulled the small blanket tighter over her lap, and gave her a quiet nod. "I promised, didn't I?" She nodded back. "Then, no storm's going to stop us today." Further up the cabin, Ariana opened her tablet again, then closed it. Outside her window, the clouds thickened. Inside his seat, Lucas closed his eyes at last. Not from fear, but because he'd heard forecasts like that before. Once over Kandahar, another time off the Horn of Africa. And neither time ended the way anyone hoped. Beside him, Emily began to drift off, still humming that half-forgotten melody, letting the sound lull her to sleep. He watched her, then glanced at the clouds, and told himself this would just be another flight. 2 hours later, somewhere over the Atlantic, everything changed. And it started with the voice of the first officer, tight, breathless, coming over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency." Lucas's eyes snapped open. His hand reached instinctively toward the violin case, not because it was fragile, but because it was his and what came next. He wasn't sure if he'd need music or muscle memory, but he knew one thing for sure. Someone's life just tilted sideways, and the sky wasn't done testing him yet. The cabin had fallen into a soft lull. Tray tables down, a few quiet conversations, the clink of ice in plastic cups, overhead lights dimmed just enough to let people pretend the world outside didn't exist. Then the turbulence began. Not the gentle bumps that made drinks quiver, but a deeper, more guttural shudder that moved through the bones of the Boeing 747. Overhead compartments creaked. Cutlery rattled in the galley. Somewhere near the rear, a baby started to cry. Lucas opened his eyes. His instincts registered the vibration before his mind did. Combat pilots never forgot the language of air, how it spoke, not just in sound, but in pressure. Something had shifted. The clouds had thickened. The air had turned heavier. He glanced toward Emily. She was still half asleep, one cheek resting on her stuffed bear. The melody she'd been humming in Chapter 1 was now a whisper of breath. But then, through the silence, a ripple of static broke across the intercom, followed by a voice that didn't belong to the captain. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice cracked, We have a medical emergency. If anyone on board has combat aviation experience, please make yourself known to the flight crew immediately." The cabin froze. Passengers straightened in their seats. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A businessman paused with a fork halfway to his mouth. A flight attendant stepped out of the galley, face pale and uncertain. Lucas's eyes sharpened. Up front, behind the locked cockpit door, Captain Donald McCarthy had collapsed against the throttle quadrant, hand still clutching his chest. His breath had given out before the sentence finished. The first officer, Mark Jensen, only 31, was sweating through his uniform, eyes darting from the unconscious man to the blinking autopilot panel. He hadn't flown solo in this aircraft, not at this altitude. Not in weather like this. Outside the windshield, a dark wall of clouds. The storm had shifted. So had everything else. Back in the cabin, the whispers started. What kind of emergency? Is it the pilot? Did they say, combat experience? A man in a tailored navy sweater unbuckled his seatbelt and stood. Mid-40s silver hair neatly parted, the kind of tan that doesn't fade in winter. He held up a hand confidently.